Hi everyone, my name is Dora Eloise Anadera, and this is my PSA presentation on amending the U.S. Constitution, more particularly the amendment process in the United States. Just a brief overview on what to expect today. I'm going to go ahead and explain how amendments are passed, the historical impact of amendments, and why so many proposals fail. And we'll go ahead and eventually compare this to state constitutions, which have been seen to change much more often over time. And we'll also wrap things up by taking a look at the 2024 election and how the amendment process played a role in that. So, the key question that this has all raised is, does the amendment process make our Constitution too rigid, or is its difficult process necessary to protect us? The U.S. Constitution has been amended only 27 times since it was written in 1787. The process of adding amendments is very difficult, and that tedious nature is intentional. The Founding Fathers wanted to make sure that only major, widely supported changes could be made and brought into our lives to shape us within society. Let's go ahead and talk about the amendment process. So Article 5 of the Constitution lays out two ways to propose an amendment. One could be that Congress can propose one, but this would require a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate. Another way would be that a constitutional convention could be called if 2/3 of state legislators requested one. And then once an amendment is proposed, it doesn't just automatically become a law. It has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, meaning 38 out of 50 states must approve it. And states have two ways to do this: through their legislators, which is how most of the amendments we see today are passed, and through special state conventions, which has only happened once for the 21st Amendment. From this, I could say that it's clear that the Founding Fathers wanted change to be possible, but not easy for society. The Congressional Research Service explains that this was designed to prevent constant and impulsive changes to the Constitution. Let's go ahead and talk about historical influence and primary sources. So even though it's difficult from what we've seen, some amendments have shaped the country in many ways. A couple of these ways are through the Bill of Rights, which gave us core freedoms such as speech and religion, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which ended slavery, granted citizenship to former slaves, and protected voting rights, the 19th Amendment, which finally gave women the right to vote, and the 27th Amendment, which prevented Congress from giving itself immediate pay raises. From this, the 27th Amendment was actually first proposed in 1789, and it wasn't fully ratified until 1992, which was over 200 years later. Why? It was because Article 5 didn't actually have a set deadline at the time, unless Congress decided to add one. And according to Brenda Erickson from the National Conference of State Legislators, this loophole allowed states to slowly approve it over 2 centuries. Now let's go ahead and talk about challenges and controversies. So why do most proposed amendments never make it to the Constitution? Out of 33 that have passed Congress, only 27 have been ratified. One of the biggest setbacks was the Equal Rights Amendment, which was supposed to be guaranteeing gender equality. Congress passed it in 1972, but it never got enough state support before the deadline. The way that Article 5 is written means that a small group of politicians or just 13 states can block any amendment, no matter how much support it has. Legal scholars Michael B. Rappaport and David A. Strauss argue that this makes changes nearly impossible. And there's also a lot of fear from this because the constitutional conventions have never had a place within our history, and we've never had one. And a lot of people worry that if we ever did, it would go off the rails and open this door to radical and unexpected changes to the Constitution. This will go ahead and lead us to state versus federal amendments. Now, when comparing this to state constitutions, the U.S. Constitution barely changes, while state constitutions change all the time. Across all 50 states, there have been around 7,000 amendments. States allow amendments through legislators, citizen votes, or commissions, and even some states, such as Alabama, have over 900 amendments. And According to John Dennon, state constitutions are designed to be more flexible because states need to respond quickly to local issues that surround them, while the federal government prioritizes stability for all, which in a way kind of makes sense. Now let's go ahead and talk about the 2024 election. So even though we haven't had a new amendment since 1992, people are still pushing for them today, and some of the biggest amendment debates within the 2024 election included voting rights, and a lot of people were wondering if there should be a constitutional amendment protecting access to voting. Another process that a lot of people wanted implemented surrounded around campaign finance and if we should limit how much money politicians could raise for their cause. And another big issue that was talked about was term limits for Congress, and a lot of people were wondering if politicians should be required to step down after a certain number of years that they've served. A lot of people also supported a balanced budget amendment, which would force the government to avoid debt. And after all of this, according to Brenda Erickson, even though these ideas may not become amendments, they still show how the Constitution's amendment process is still continuing to shape local politician and political debates today. Now let's go ahead and wrap things up by talking about the Constitution as a living document. So a lot of people refer to the Constitution as a living document because of its ability to adapt over time. In the past, we've seen how amendments were used to fix major injustices like slavery and voting rights. And today we can talk about and see how people argue we need new amendments for the ever-changing technology, privacy, and election laws that surround us. And from this, some people say that the process should be easier to keep up with modern challenges, while others say that the difficulty is necessary to protect democracy from reckless changes. And from all of this, Michael B. Rappaport and David A. Strauss point out that this debate between flexibility and stability has been going on since the Constitution was first written, and shows how it still continues to shape the minds of future and past generations, which in the end create a relationship for everyone, all. So to conclude, amending the Constitution is a long, difficult process, but that's by design and it's necessary. And some of the biggest moments in U.S. history happen because of amendments, and that state constitutions change all the time while federal constitutions stay the same for decades. Understanding this process helps us see how our democracy works and how it's been built to balance change with stability. Thank you.